Hello guys, David Vose here. Wow, is it a beautiful day. I'm on the road driving. You're probably going to hear the rumbling of the tires. I've got big all-wheel drive tires on here because I live on a dirt road, so they're a little noisy. And yeah, it's an old truck. Well, it's not that old, but it's a beautiful day. Oh, it's beautiful. It's warm. I just feel like we're not going to really have any winter at all. I just resigned myself to that. Seems like, and it really makes me happy. I mean, I don't know if the Lord did this all for me, because I didn't really want to go through another winter at this juncture. 1,000 points of light. But I know we need water, and I certainly am going to be sad if we don't have any flowers this spring. So I said, all right, Lord, you can let it rain a little bit. And if you got to let it snow, just a couple inches and it'll melt off. And he said, all right, we'll do that. So we haven't had a lot of snow. And that was really nice. And the temperatures have been nice. And I think in my own heart, I kind of feel like the earth is kind of flipping. And I think places that are going to be used to be colder might be a little warmer. And some places that were a little warmer might be a little colder. And I feel like I'm sliding into a slot where I like. But I hope you're having a wonderful day, friends. It's a beautiful day. And again, I just turned this thing on. I don't have any script. I'm trying to drive this vehicle and about ran off the road already. But don't you worry. Got angels on both sides of the car, on each fender. And this guy right now thinks he's going to pass me. Oh, buddy, here he goes. Woo! Right around in a no passing zone, so I must be going too slow. Well, I'm going 55, which is actually the speed limit. And these guys just can't bear this law we call speed limits, so they just go around. All right. More power to them. It's like, is that their way of protesting these awful, evil laws? Well, let's stand with them. Keep on speeding, man, go! Well, not me, because I can't afford a ticket. But I don't need to go any faster anyway. I like plodding along here slow, but I get to my destination. And usually these guys that pass me, they want to go, I'm going 55, and they're like, we can't do this, we've got to go 60. So they go 60, and 10 miles up the road, we get to the stop sign, and I'm right behind them. Like, they didn't get there any quicker. I don't know. But, guys, there's an interesting thing that my mind keeps throwing at me in my moments of silence. And sometimes it's hard to blast through these thoughts, these ideas, these revelations we have in the quiet times. And they're brilliant, and they're wonderful thoughts. And it teaches us something, and it gives us insight. But, when I was young, when I had these kinds of thoughts, I had them. Oh, I had them. But I would forget them, and I'd move on down the road. We, got to go to work, punch the clock, can't remember all this stuff. And we kind of just, they're circulating around there in the back of our mind, but we're not practicing them because we're stuck somehow. And I don't know what this stuck thing is, but we're stuck in this negative. And I think we've come to the conclusion, all of us, really, it's the natural thing to do. So, all of us at some point, unless you can overcome it. But all of us at this level, we get entrapped. Now, don't you worry. You're not little weaky. We're all weak. The flesh is weak. The spirit is eager, the Bible said. But what does this mean? What is the flesh? And it's got to be, the flesh is weak. We're not talking about physical material structure alone. We're talking about some kind of desire, some kind of power that the flesh has. Oh, so the flesh has some kind of power, and ain't no power coming from anything other than mind. So that's why the Bible calls it a fleshly mind. And so it appears that we all got a fleshly mind. And it's dragging us down, and we're like, wait a minute. We don't want no fleshly mind. We want a spiritual mind. Let's follow after the Spirit. According to the Apostle Paul, that's what we got to do. And everybody's like, okay, I'll just do that. So they do that. Well, they don't know what that means. They're just doing something. They're trying to do something. They got a doctrine, by golly, they'll tell you the truth. Oh, buddy, you got to have the Holy Spirit, and they'll tell you the whole thing. But they don't have it. They don't know what they're talking about. This is detailed, intricate stuff that the Bible tells you in just the truth language, just like talking. Oh, blah, 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 blah. It's like, hey, like you already know this stuff. But the problem is we've come 2,000 years and we're at a point where ain't nobody knows this stuff. Now, why would they know that stuff then? We don't know it now. Well, they had all these mystery schools. They weren't being bombarded by the internet, lying and controlling your mind. The CIA hadn't been invented. They weren't MK Ultra mind controlling you. And you weren't in some kind of mind experiment like Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or maybe Lutherans or Presbyterians or, should I dare say, Judaism. It is a mind control. It is a delusion where you get caught in the delusion of the letter, the literal part of the story. As if, it's like, hey, yeah, I get it. There's some guy with a turban, met some other guy with a turban out in the middle of the desert, and they made an agreement and set up a rock and anointed it with some oil and said, this is it, man. We got a covenant now. And we're looking back on these guys and trying to imagine that a rock out in the desert that was poured over with some, got to be olive oil, probably in some, even cannabis mixed in there. Well, that could help, put that on your head. But somehow all these little rituals is all that we need to know. He went to his rabbi class and learned how to perform the ritual. But if you want to go to a class to learn the meaning of the ritual, then that class lasts several generations, I'm telling you. You're going to have to go through life, the game of life, and you're going to learn. Now, at the end, when everybody wakes up and they've gone through the game of life and they've learned all this thing called integrity and love and goodness and gentleness, they've ate from the fruit of the tree of life, which has always been there, but it's just like most people haven't been eating from it. They're scared, right? The law says, thou shalt not. You little dirty sucker. You're a unclean little piece of crap. But they never explain to you, it's not you that's a piece of crap. It's this lower nature and the deity that's testing you, who's the vengeful deity, who's going to avenge every right action or wrong action based on some delusion that there is such a thing as right and wrong, and that righteousness is by means of law. Well, it cannot be, because just think about the fact that some people are under a delusion, or you could be out of your mind, or you could be sick, or you could have ignorance and not know the truth. You could be abused and smacked around and scared and reacting. Well, what is this lower nature that reacts? This evil crap. Well, it's necessary when you got somebody bashing you around, smacking you around. Well, in order to survive, you're going to have to smack them back. That's the lower law of nature. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It is the law. Ain't nothing you can do about that. Yahweh's forever. His laws are forever. And if you're going to be in this world and you're going to be playing with his blocks, well, you got to know the rules in the sandbox, right? But here's the neat thing. The awareness that we don't have to live in this little sandbox and play by their rules. Their daddy owns the sandbox. All right, great. That's their sandbox. Let them have it. What we're supposed to do is realize that we're not what they're insinuating we are over there in the sandbox. They're like, oh, you dirty little... This is Pigpen and his brother Charlie Brown. They're stupid, right? We ain't going to let them play in our sandbox because we got rules here, and we have determined that Pigpen is not clean, and he's not allowed to play in our pig pen. And in order to play in our pig pen, he's going to have to find new parents, right? Because they let him get dirty like that, and they're not washing him up. Somebody ought to call the child protective agencies. What the heck's going on? Oh, they did, but it's a cartoon, so they couldn't do anything about it. Anyway, the point is that you don't actually get punished because your parents never gave you the knowledge of what is healthy and what is clean, and you didn't have the ability to do that. You were ignorant. You didn't even know. You're just, look, the point is we start in this world at the bottom, and with faith, we're learning that we can reach out and partake of the tree of life, but we have to first become aware that it is there, and that the liar who told us we couldn't have it is a lie. The one who said we're filthy and nasty, that's just that outer, we could go take a bath, we're clean. That's not the problem. The problem is the fact that we're afraid of the people in the sandbox, and they've convinced us that we're just dirty and that's our nature, and that they're better than we are. But they've been keeping us in this frame of mind for a long, long time. We got to wake up. We got to realize that we're all the children of the Lord. That the kingdom that we've been living in is not the real kingdom. We're in a kingdom of delusion. There have been a lot of lies. And yeah, if you lived in this world and people are going to be of this nature, where they're going to want to have lust and hatefulness and vengeance like their own papa, they're going to follow the example of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, then we're all going to go round and round, catch 22. We're all going to die, right? There ain't no way out of this. This is why we got to go to the next stage, which is forgiveness, and realize that our spiritual source of who we are, our being, is not evil. So I was thinking about all of this, and I was, we did a few days ago, we did a video, and I mentioned the fact that a person could take chemicals or even herbs or whichever. I think herbs would be the way that would be helpful and healthy, but there are chemicals that can mimic the effect, but I don't know that they are good for you, because most of them are going to cause you to deteriorate mentally afterwards. They're not, you're not feeding on them, you're not absorbing the health that they provide, but you're more or less being manipulated and burning out your circuits, and you end up getting worse in the long run. But if we take some herbs, it seems like we can make ourselves happier. Well, why would we be surprised at that? Let's say that I am living in this world and I'm a spiritual person, and I don't care about these material things. And so I say, well, I'm spiritual. I'm going to live on love, happiness, and I'm going to live on the truth. The truth is I'm a spiritual being. And I can walk through walls and I can do all these things. So I don't need nothing. Well, a spiritual being is an entity, a being. It cannot die. However, that being can go into depression, which is, let's put it this way. Let's explain what that means, depression. It means ignorance. It means a lack of knowledge. Because if you had the truth, it would set you free. The Bible tells you that. Love casts out all fear. So you wouldn't have fear if you had love, right? So what is love and what is truth? There, you just answered your question. You see, love is the spirit, but it's the truth, the reality. So the negative part, not the truth. It's pictured as the darkness. So why then would a person be happy after taking an herb if you're a spiritual being? Why does some kind of physical thing, material thing that we're claiming we don't really, we're above that. That's not important. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you're a spiritual being and you're above all these lies and all this ignorance and all the pain. Nothing can harm you. You're powerful. You're a divine being. somebody could come along, and if they could convince you that you're not a divine being, that these fears within you didn't happen first, but they happened second. See, if they could convince you that all the evil that's happening to you is the reality, then you are going to be afraid. And the fear, because you believed that the reality was evil, because they told you, and you believed it, you believed the liar, the deity of vengeance, the darkness, and you believed it, then your mind then creates what you believe. Because you are still the divine being, but you're creating negative thoughts. And that's creating what? A prison. Negative means a prison. What is a prison? What is the analogy? What's the parallel? Well, a prison is material. Why? Because you can't hold somebody in a prison that ain't got no iron bars. You can't make them out of paper mache. They'll get right out. You got to imprison somebody with iron, something very hard, something very, strong. It can keep you, divine being, inside of a predetermined space, right? Well, nothing could keep you in a predetermined space. You're the divine being, right? Well, one thing can. One thing can imprison you, and that is the lies. Because since you are the divine being, whatever you believe is going to be, and if somebody can convince you that you aren't what you are, and make you fear by causing you not to love, and you're like, well, I can't love, I'm so scared, I'm full of fear. It's the opposite, right? You can't have darkness while light is in your temple. So by the same token, if you told them the truth, that lie would leave. And then all of a sudden they'd realize, wow, I am, right? I have no lack, because everything I think is part of me, and I am whole, and I am perfect, right? And if I seek ye first the kingdom, his kingdom, all these other things will be added unto me. They're not the goal. The goal is the spirit, the inside of the cup, and then the outside will be already clean. This is what the Lord taught us, but you see, it's so simple. And literally, I could go on all day with all these examples and teaching scriptures and all. I guarantee we just hit it on the nail. Yay! Just drove that nail in with one smack. You know, you see these guys, how many times you have to hit that nail driving in? It's like, oh, I'm really strong. I can do it in 3 smacks. We did it in one smack. And that is the truth. The truth is all you need. But will you believe the truth? Will you be convinced of the truth? Because you've got to dispel the darkness. And, lighting that flame is easy. All you got to do is get a match and light it, and there you go. Well, you got to have oil in there, right? Or some kind of wax or something to burn, or gasoline or something. So, according to the scripture, the oil is spirit, right? And love, like let your light shine, truth. Truth can't shine without knowing the truth. And the truth was going to set you free, and the truth is light, and that takes out the darkness. So we can see what we got going here. In order to have our light to shine, we got to have our vessel full of truth, full of understanding. We must be aware, shining our light. The whole Bible's about this. It's very, very simple. We simply got to change our mind. That's it. Now, that we determine that in the first, almost 20 minutes. How do we find this? How do we get this truth? And how do we know what truth is? Well, you can't read it in a book. You're not going to get it from me. Even though I've told you the truth, but you're not going to get it from me. And you can read the Bible and sin there, but you're not going to get it from the Bible. Although you must hear the Bible. You got to have somebody that is at least, pointing you in the right direction. I mean, it's almost impossible if you're going to figure this all out on your own. We got to That's why the Lord sent prophets, And they're going to be false prophets. And every lie that's in this world is a false prophet. So you're going to have to be able to distinguish between spirits. Means sincerity, means seeking truth. And there's a little mechanism built into the universe that the Lord has already told us about. And that is, if we truly seek the truth, we'll find it. If we seek, we'll find. We'll knock, it'll be open. That's it. The whole thing is based on sincerity. Now, it may take time, depending on how sincere and how bad you want the truth. But if you're interested in something that sounds like this truth so you can make yourself look good, right? Or you can manipulate others or get power over them. I mean, even secretly, if you didn't even know it. But, think very hard about why you're doing these things and what is your motive. Because if you want the truth just for power, then you're not going to find it. Peter told Simon Magus the same thing. Your heart was not right. You want it. You think you can buy this stuff. It comes from Holy Spirit. It can be like a sharp, two-edged sword, dividing spirit and thoughts, bone and marrow. Right between the physical. It can divide your material, lustful desires from your spiritual inner desire. If you truly, and we all do, deep down inside, there is a core to every one of us that wants the truth. Because it'd be like saying, hey, do you want to live? You'd be, yeah. What kind of a question is that? Do you want to be happy? Yeah. Okay, everyone wants to be happy. All right. The problem is if you get deceived and you ended up being unhappy, and you're just going around circles because you don't know that what you're doing is producing the outcome, and the outcome is what you're getting. And you're going to have to change what you're doing to change what you're getting. And you're denying Christ every day, when you should be receiving him, and opening your eyes on the way to Damascus, or I should say, on the way to Emmaus. Their eyes were open. Their hearts began to burn within them. They began to understand the truth, and their third eye began to open, and they had this awareness that Christ was right there in their midst. He was there all along, but they didn't see him, just like when they were in the boat and the waves were building up and the boat was about to perish and go sink. They didn't realize that Christ was in the boat. They were like, well, he's sleeping. Okay, well, wake him up. Wake him up. He's in you already. Just wake him up. Which is what? The truth. The truth's already there. But you've accepted the lie. So it's hard to get people to realize you got to let go of the devil. They're like, I don't believe in the devil. But you're believing the devil. The devil says everything's going to be bad. So what happens when you partake of an herb? Well, the herb is some physical thing, right? Yeah, but the energy that made that herb is a spiritual thing. And we don't share with somebody else's spirit right straight from their spirit. Their spirit is vibrating or showing some kind of vibration by, revealing the source of the spirit. Like, so if their spirit or their inner being is love, cherish your heart, because it's what comes out of your heart, right? Not what goes into the mouth, right? But so what's in the heart? Is it love? Is it sincerity? How could there be sincerity in your heart and love if at the same time there's vengeance and hate? So are you two separate people? One of you is hate and vengeance, and one of you is love. And, well, it's just you. Either you're deceived, and that's what's in there is deception, or truth. And if it's truth that's in there, then the light will shine. Now, how do you get the deception out and put the truth in? Well, it comes from experience. Because eventually, if you follow the way of the darkness, you're going to fall off the cliff, and you're like, well, that didn't feel very good. All right, so let's go back and try this again. And this time, we know there's a cliff there. We know the danger's there, and we understand that we better not be traveling at night. We got to gain wisdom. You gain wisdom, and then you can make the trip just fine. And you get to the Emerald City, and there's the Emerald Tower, and you open the curtain, and yeah, there's nobody back there. It's just a beautiful city. But you don't want to go to that other Emerald Tower that's just fake, where the man behind the curtain's pulling all the lever, and he's just deceiving you. And you get there, and all these little munchkins and the Wicked Witch of the West, they just want to kill you. And all these dang monkeys, oh my goodness, coming out of the darkness. Well, you see, all you ever had to do was click your heels 3 times together, the little red slippers, right? Just click them together 3 times. Well, why 3 times? Because you see, there is a formula. And you have to have a little persistence. You can't just do it once and expect it all to work out. You got to 3 times because, you see, once you do it repetitiously and you learn it and you understand it and you realize your power, that you're the source of this angel, right? And the wicked of the West. And it's just a figment of your imagination. And it's your own darkness, and the little monkeys are the little monsters coming up out of your fear and this unknown imagination you've got, because you're just a little kid and you're scared of boogeyman's under the bed. Well then, yeah, that's what happens. So we got to have the truth. So that herb is a physical thing, yeah, but we're not really partaking of physical things, are we? We're partaking of energy. You partake of someone's love, and that gives you encouragement, both spiritual, right? Somebody loves you, you feed on that. You feel better when somebody loves you. Somebody hates you, you don't feel good. That causes a lot of pain. So we got to learn to love one another, feed one another with this energy. And so in the physical world, after all, everything in the physical world coming from our mind, and the world today has got a lot of poison stuff, right? The earth is cursed. The ground produces thorns and thistles, right? And Jesus said nobody gets food from thorns and thistles, do they? Okay, so we're not going to get any food from this cursed world. It's cursed. So what do we do to remove the curse? Just forgive it, right? We ain't got to make it pay. Vengeance belongs to what? Yahweh? Well, I'll let him have that. Because love belongs to our Heavenly Father and forgiveness. And we've moved on. So, love is the answer. Fear is the enemy. Who said there's nothing to fear but the fear itself? So, yeah, that's why herbs work. Because there's a world around us. Mountains are really just physical things. They can't kill it. We can't jump off a mountain and die. We're spiritual beings. But in the reality that we're living in, under the rules of this world, that we've all collectively come together and determined that we're going to have a physical surface to walk on, and that our thoughts of love and happiness are going to be represented by flowers and colors and beautiful things. They manifest beautiful images, and we then partake of those beautiful images as kind of a symbol of partaking of those spiritual ideas. Because really it was the spiritual ideas that made all those flowers. But yes, we have to understand that it is the mind that produces the flower. So you can, without the weed, get happy. But what's going on when we get happy? Is it just physical little hormones that make us happy? Are we programmed to be happy? Or is happiness a state of being where we should always be happy? Well, I told you guys the other day, we're in a rotten world. In this world, everything dies, it's sick, because the mind is sick. So we're going to have to find some people that are willing to become whole, that are willing to reach out and partake of the tree of life and show others the way. And heal one another. That's why Jesus forgave them. And it took the one person. Loved them, forgave them, told them now in turn to go out and love and forgive everybody else. And that starts the ball rolling. The problem is that there were more bad people in the world at that time than there were good, and they overpowered the righteous and murdered them because they couldn't stay here and protect us forever. And the time wasn't right for everybody in the world, enough people to wake up at that time. Because there is a time for everything under the sun, and we had to go through this test, these trials, this tribulation, in order to determine, to get the shaft burned out, to run the ore, the iron ore through the fire so that the dross could be burned off. It's a process. And there was a due time, an appointed time for the harvest. And the harvest is the end of the world. And that's where we're at now. And therefore I know that I can look out and see that the field is white already for harvest. And trust that every year the grain grows, just put it in the ground and it grows up by itself. It's a miracle. Life is real, man. And we don't have to be afraid. We're going to be all right. We just weren't ready, right, at the time. But now we are. Some of us are. And so now we can grasp this, what we're talking about. But I wanted to mention something that I've been thinking about because, I've had many occasions where I didn't feel well. I wasn't happy. I was depressed. And then maybe I smoked some weed and 30 minutes later I felt happy. My whole disposition changed. And I tried to monitor that and try to figure out what's going on. And, in those moments where I'm feeling real good, I can still remember bad things. I can still remember the rent that's got to be paid, or, the people that hurt my feelings and all the negative things. But it's like I don't dwell on them. I don't stay down in there. And when I'm high, let's put it that way, my mind seems to be more aware of all kinds of fleeting things. I'll be thinking about something and it just gives me happiness. I'm happy. It's like being in a dream. You're just following the heart, the desire of trying to find a treasure, or you're just going from one thought to another, and it all seems pretty good. You don't get too depressed, because if you latch upon something negative, you just keep moving on. It doesn't hold you. You're not bound by it. You move on to the next thought. It might be happier. And you seem to be a lot happier. And then you can get into these little wormholes where you have a thought that just brings all kind of happiness. And you might spend 30 minutes in this bubble of happiness. And whereas if you didn't have that chemical in your body, you might not be able to stay out of that negative world and in that positive world so long. Now, what causes this? Just an herb? I really believe, as I've thought about this, that the world that we're living in is literally more dense. The negative world, where there's all these problems and selfishness and lust. You see the animals killing each other, murdering each other, humans in prisons and government. And you think, well, maybe they can't help it. But there's some insatiable lust. And it's keeping them bound. It's deceiving them. And then on top of that, you got the law, which is deceiving them. Philosophy. Maybe that's what's holding them, is disbelief. It's holding them there. But whatever's holding them, and I think it's just as simple as that. It's a belief. It's a knowing. But whatever's holding you there, ultimately, you're there. And it seems like these bars made of iron cannot be broken. So you're in a prison. The bars are made of iron. You can't get out. It's hopeless. You've tried. You bashed your head up against a brick wall several times. It's solid. You're not getting out of there. And your lawyer ain't coming. And they convicted you. And you're done. Right? And you're just going to watch the cobwebs form. And how much moss is going to grow on your brick toilet. right? And your freezing shower and your 4 gray walls. You're just doomed, and there's no way out. And the more you think about it, the scarier it gets. Well, that's a very solid material world. It requires very hard things to keep you in there. We talked about that a minute ago. So if they tried to keep you in a prison of paper mache, you'd break your way out. So in order to be kept in a prison, it's going to have to be strong. And in the physical world, we see it in the iron, the solid material form of this world that can keep you in prison. But let's liken it then to the thoughts. Are there then thoughts that are negative? Yes. And what do they do? Well, they're like material structures that are so hard and heavy and strong that they can bind anyone. Let's be honest, they can bind anyone, even us. Unless somebody has the power to go from negative thoughts to positive. And you couldn't do it for very long if you didn't believe it. Because the power of thought is belief. And therefore, this is why we must have faith to please the Lord. Without faith, it is impossible to please the divine spirit, or to please mind, or to activate mind. It's really that simple. And so this is why it's so difficult, so hard. And so what does the weed do, or the drug, or whatever? Well, it can deaden material things. It can lighten your mind by raising your vibration so that the physical things don't seem so physical anymore. I literally believe that we're creating, when we have doubts and negative thoughts, we're literally creating a prison around us. The world we're making is harsher, or it's poison, it's dangerous, it's solid, it seems impregnable, and it's entrapped everyone. It's like a virus. Once you get that little virus in there, you got to be healthy. Your immune system's got to be very healthy, or you're good. Now, if your immune system's healthy, you're not going to be worried about viruses. But most people get weak, and once they are weak, you might not be able to overcome the damage of the virus. So, unless you know the truth, and you're, I'm pulling into a parking lot. So, unless you really know the truth and stand on the truth, and you have some ability where you're not affected by the lies, you're in prison. A person that is in prison, a physical prison, would never be able to come out of there, so long as they believe they're in that prison. And how are you going to make them believe they're not in there? Because they went to the judge put the handcuffs on them, the jailer took them down, threw them into a cell with some guy they didn't know, and locked it tight. And you're sentenced. And there's police, and they got guns, and you feel like you're under their authority. But do you know that even that authority is not as authoritative as you might have thought? In fact, how authoritative do you think an iron bar is across your head? Right? You would think, well, that'll kill you, right? That's pretty authoritative, right? You ain't got no power over that. Well, I would say that iron bar is stronger than the police. They're not as strong as the material iron bar, because they have to use the iron bar to bind you. They couldn't do it by themselves. You see? They can sentence you, they can lie to you, they can tell you you're bad, and they can say all that, but they can't really put you in jail without chains, iron things, hard things. And they might have to go and find a really strong guy to wrestle you to the ground to get those chains on you. So they're going to rely on some kind of brute physical strength to imprison you. But brute physical strength, by its nature, has no power without mind. Therefore, if you struggle and fight with somebody's trying to imprison you and beat you, then you lost. You lost because you can't be as wicked and as powerful and as evil as them. They've got all the powers of this world, Satan at the throne, and it's just you. You say, yeah, but I got Jesus. Okay, but you ain't listening to Jesus. You're listening to them. They told you you're going to prison, so therefore you listening to them. You believe them. You believe in this world. You believe in the wolves that they're telling you about. Now, isn't it strange that you can be in that situation and take a drug and leave your body and go to some other world and everything's fine? You know that? Your mind is what makes reality. Now, how come is it when you come back, then you're still there in the jail cell? Well, not necessarily. You go out of the body and you don't necessarily go straight to heaven. You work your way through all the delusions. You got nightmares, right? Even if you take peyote, you're going to see demons and you're going to see monsters, and you're going to have to weed your way through all this and rise up above it all. And what are we trying to find? The truth. So the drugs can release you of this physical delusion for a minute, but if you're not, there's something else beyond all of this, beyond you personally being released, your spirit being released from this body. It makes things better. You feel better while you're released. You're flying around. But then you come back to the body. Why? Because while you were out of the body, you were still of the same mental attitude. You hadn't heard the truth. The truth is a splash of light that goes through the curtain behind the veil. That flash of light's coming from the Holy Spirit, the Shekinah, which is feminine. And that's your divine mother. And she will teach you all things you need to know. And in the hour you need to know it. And give you the power over all things. Right? The Holy Spirit can defeat everything in this universe. And that's the truth. And the truth is beyond a veil that's a veil of ignorance. And even if you're on peyote and you're flying around or to, whatever kind of cannabis or anything else, it can deaden your body enough to where you can get free. But you're still looking down at the body. You're still looking at the circumstances. You're still having the nightmares. You're still going through one station and appearing before a panel of angels to see whether you're worthy, and you're not. Because no matter how many times you take those drugs, or somebody tells you and testifies of the truth of the water, until you go and drink from the water, right? Then when you take these herbs, you will never come back. You'll come back after you're high. You'll come back to the present balanced state where the negative is gone, just simply because you don't have any lies going on in your mind or your head. You believe you know the truth. You can be persuaded to know the truth by people telling you. You might be able to find some higher angelic-like beings if you could leave your body, and they could encourage you. But ultimately, in the end, you could be initiated, but the initiation means nothing unless you reach the place where you receive the truth. So the prince goes in and he tries to pull the sword from the rock. Nobody can pull that sword out of that rock. It's the sword of truth. And until the prince comes, who is what? That inner spiritual you. Until you remove all the lies and get down to you. Because it's only you that can remove that sword, which is the sword of the Spirit, and wield it. And with it, conquer the dragon, the monster, the lies. So it's helpful to leave your body. It's helpful to get high. You feel better. But what we need ultimately is to go within in a deeper place. Not just leaving the physical body, going into the astral, but we got to go into the most holy, which is refined more than astral. It's inner light of the truth. We have to awaken to the absolute reality of the truth. Now, it's easier to see that truth when you're outside of the body. All these negative things aren't bothering you, and you feel better. But let's enjoy that and let's live in that state, right? But to live in that state all the time, we have to be able to find this absolute truth and know it beyond any shadow of a doubt. Come to an accurate knowledge of the truth, which is gnosis, and it's a specific word that doesn't just mean facts and things, but an understanding of that from experience, an awakening gnosis. We have to have a gnosis. And so sometimes we can read parables and we can meditate on them, and they can cause our mind to open a little bit, a little crack, like, whoa, we've caught something. And then this light shines into us, which is that truth. But a lot of times, if we were to stay in that position, it would keep shining in there until it lightened your whole being. Jesus said, if the light of the body is the eye, and if that eye be single, your whole body be full of light. So if we can keep our eye single and meditating and keep it only thinking about the truth, then it begins to shine and radiate. And once it gets to every crevice and cranny in our body, it exposes all these darkness, all these evil monsters, and they have to leave. The light makes them leave. If you just get one crack of light, then the light, and the demons get a little scared, but then you forget about the light and goes back to darkness, and then they bring 7 more worse than they were the first time, right? You've got to let the light in and bask in the light for long periods of time and let it root out every demon. So this is why it takes prayer and fasting, right, to get rid of all these demons. And we get rid of them not just by saying, I'm not aware of them anymore. I'm high, I'm flying up here, but they're down there. We got to get rid of them by letting the light shine down in the conscious world, not just in that place where we're high, but in the real world. We got to start letting light shine into our mind, into a place that is hard to define. It's what I started off by saying, that sometimes we think that thoughts are just thoughts, right? If I have negative thoughts or positive thoughts, they're just thoughts. Neither one of them is more dangerous or hurtful or better, or, if I have a good thought, that can be helpful. If I have a bad thought, that can, get me off track for a minute. But we think of them as just thoughts. But understand that the negative thoughts are different. The positive thoughts are more powerful. However, only if you have the positive thoughts all the time. Because the minute the positive thoughts lets the darkness win, as the minute that you're not doing the positive thoughts, but you're just doing the negative thoughts, then you're already in the negative thoughts again. And the negative thoughts are addictive, right? Sometimes they're pleasure. It's like rolling around you begin to indulge in this lustful behavior. When you want and you lust, what you don't realize is you're indulging in ignorance, because you already have. So why indulge in the idea that you don't have anything and be drooling at the mouth to get something that you already have? You see, it's a delusion. It's a poison that causes you to be unaware of the positive things. Now, if you could get back to the positive, you could dispel the negative. If you could reach absolute understanding, if your eye could be single for long enough and fast and pray long enough that all the demons leave and you're filled with light, then then the darkness won't ever come to mind again. The evil, the lies won't come to mind again because you've proven it, right? You've tested your suppositions and you've basked in the sunshine, and it takes time. You can't just walk out in the sun for 5 minutes. You need hours in the sun, and it's a disinfectant and gets rid of all the poisons. You need to bask in the truth every day for long periods of time. And that may include eating right and having proper herbs and nutrients, that are really energies that we all collective consciously have decided that happiness is going to be something like a flower. And there are still flowers in the world. There's still happiness in the world. It's just that much of the world is deluded and dark, and there's drought, and there's storms, and there's chaos. The world around us has more negative than it has positive. So if we're in this world, we're going to be weighted down with all these negative things. So we have to get out of the world long enough so that we can remember where we are and who we are. And then when we come back into this world, we have enough wisdom to realize not to eat the poisons that everyone else is eating. We have enough wisdom to realize that our brothers and sisters aren't evil, that they're just into delusion, and that we're not in that delusion. We can help them. And we're going to have patience at that point, because we're going to feel really bad for these people. So, I think what I want to sort of end this whole video and conclude with is the fact that negative thoughts are far more powerful than you think, and yet can be defeated with truth. I've driven to town, and you probably hear a car here too. I had to come into town. I haven't been in town for, I don't know, it's been a couple months or something, but I had to finally break down and come into town. I needed some things. I'm in Gallup. And the first place I always go to when I come into town is I go to Goodwill, just to look around, you can find some pot or pan you need or something. I'm just checking, something I like to do. And then when I'm done here, I'm going to go straight to the store and get a few commodities and things I need. But what I want to break this down to is this. We have to be completely aware that it may look like the physical world is the most strongest, amazing, powerful thing that, if they put you in a prison with iron bars, you're done. But there is a way out of that, just like there is a way out of this world of war and hate and depression. Collectively, the whole world that we're living in is still in some kind of delusion or prison. But collectively, we've grown to a point where we're willing now. We're tired of this darkness, and most of us are ready now for a change. But it's difficult, and the stronger ones are going to have to learn that we just got to get a pick and chisel our way out of this ice, right? It looks solid, but you get a hole through this ice, and we can get a path out of here, because we know that there is salvation, that there is a thing called love that will defeat the darkness. It looks like the iron bars are strong, but that's something we can use. Understanding that these iron bars are so strong and you can't break them. You can't break them with physical things. In other words, if you're in a negative situation and you're believing negative things and evil things, hurtful things, and you're depressed, then you try to go get something else. You try to go get something physical to save you, right? Let's see, what's harder than iron bars? A stick? That won't work. You're never going to get out of there. They don't put anything in the cell, a hammer or anything you could use to bust out. So that's an example. If you had something you could bust out, what do you need? Well, a tool of some kind. So what is the tool to bust out? It's love. Love and goodness. And it doesn't happen immediately. You don't say, oh, I love you, and boom, your whole world's great. You say, I love you, and then you can shake your head and start to see that there's options. Okay, but now you have to remember that you can't go back and think, well, I'm just going to lay on this prison slab with this little tiny sheet and freeze to death and eat this slop and imagine fearfully all these terrible things that's going on and just get swallowed up in this, what would you call it, defeatism, and just, you're defeated because in your mind you don't believe there's a way out. As soon as you have an idea, you got to think, come up with some idea. Well, what could get me out of here? Maybe somebody could be going through the files and notice that I'm really innocent. I believe that could happen. You could start thinking that could happen. You could have hope. It's like, well, just because I think it's going to happen don't mean it's going to happen, Dave. Well, think about it. If everything is happening because of what we believe, and they've gotten you to a place where you don't believe that there could be any way out, then no, it won't. But if you could get yourself to believe, even just for a minute, just an idea, and then you dwell on that idea, you start forming through faith a concept that you're going to get out. And guess what? A few days later, somebody comes to the jail cell door and opens up and says, is this person here? You're like, yeah, I'm here. And you're like, somebody's just bailed you out. You've got another hearing and it looks pretty good. They found some evidence that you're probably innocent. And you're like, what? Yeah, see, it can be. But only what we believe is going to be. So the devil's job is to distort everything and to lie and to keep you in this place where you don't believe. Christ gave us hope and told us to forgive and love and that we would overcome the world if we could just use faith. We could move mountains. He told us this, but we don't want to really believe it. But you can believe it. And I know you're not going to be able to fully believe. I mean, it's first it starts with an idea. Now, what if what Dave is saying is true? What if Jesus was telling us this? What if that's the gospel? What if I can be happy and I got to tell others the good news that they can be happy? And what if I told them that all you got to do is have this one little happy thought and everything's going to be great, and then they go try it and it doesn't work, then they get discouraged? No, that won't work. What we got to do is tell them the truth and say, look, negative thoughts are very powerful. You've got to overcome them all. You got to let the truth in and bask in it and fast and pray for some time. That one idea is just a little bit of light coming into your consciousness and giving you a little hope. Now keep thinking about it until that becomes an idea that's stronger than all that's keeping you down. And you will succeed, my friend. And that goes for anything. And we're not talking about being in jail. I mean, if you're poor and you don't know how to come out of this and you don't know how, look, I'm not saying you should go to the academic way and try to get a degree and become a sorcerer. No, I don't think we should do that. I don't think you should even want to be so rich that you have more money than you need. I think what we need to wish for, if we want happiness, is happiness. And I think we understand what happiness is it is peace and living in the natural world. We need to encourage the world now and our brothers and sisters that it's time now. We got to get out of the world. And when we can get out of the world long enough, I think we can be happy. That's the solution. Some of you out there slaving away in the cities, let's do this. Let's listen to Jesus and get the idea and then think about it. Fan the flame, get it burning. Get that lamp in our heart burning and get to where all we're talking about is the good stuff, and we find out these iron bars are just like melted like butter. And we wake up one morning and somebody comes to our door and says, hey, we're going to give you this land, or here's an opportunity, you can get this land, and it's got water and you can plant things there and your whole family can be happy, and there's a running brook and a little pond to swim, and the climate is wonderful, and you don't owe anything. You're just going to be able to rest in this beautiful world and partake of his divine bliss. That's what is possible. That's what's possible. Reality. In fact, it's inevitable when we finally learn and then practice it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here, guys. Looks like I'm coming down to just about an hour right now. So I'm in town. I got to go in here to this market and get them things and get home. I'll try to get this loaded on the way. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening. May the Lord bless you. His grace and peace be with you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.